Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. What happens when you take a step back, when you disappear from someone's life for 30 days? You see, most people are afraid of space, of distance, of letting go even for a moment. But I'm here to tell you that space, the right kind of space, can be one of the most powerful forces in relationships. So today I want to break it down for you. What happens when you disappear for 30 days and how this changes him in ways you might not expect. Scarcity creates value. We're wired to desire what we can't easily have. When something is always there, we take it for granted. When it's suddenly gone, we crave it. It's human nature. The moment you stop texting, stop calling, stop being available at every moment, he starts to feel that gap. And that gap, that's where curiosity grows. That's where appreciation starts to form. Emotional detox, clarity through distance. Most people are so wrapped up in emotions that they can't see clearly. It's like standing too close to a painting. You can't appreciate the full picture. Stepping away gives both of you a chance to detox from emotional highs and lows. It gives him time to reflect, and more importantly, it gives you time to realize your own worth outside of this relationship. The power of uncertainty. The mind starts working. Listen, when we know exactly how something is going to play out, we stop thinking about it. But when we introduce uncertainty, the mind goes into overdrive. What's she doing? Why hasn't she reached out? Is she moving on? That mental energy, that's investment. And when someone is investing thoughts and emotions into you, it means they care more than they even realize. Breaking attachment patterns, resetting the dynamic. Most relationships operate on patterns, good or bad. If you're always the one chasing, the one initiating, the one holding it together, guess what? That pattern becomes expected. But the moment you step back, you force a change. And in that shift, he has to step up, or he has to face the reality of what happens when he doesn't. Self-transformation magnifies attraction. Let me be clear, this is not about playing games. This is about using time wisely. When you disappear for 30 days, don't just sit around waiting for a response. Work on you. Hit the gym. Learn a new skill. Surround yourself with positive energy. Why? Because when he comes back, and trust me, he will, you're not the same person he last saw. You're better, stronger, and more confident. And that's magnetic. The test of true connection. Does he step up or fade away? Now, here's the ultimate truth. After 30 days, his response tells you everything. If he doesn't reach out, if he doesn't show effort, guess what? He was never truly invested. And that, my friends, is a blessing because you just saved yourself from wasting time on someone who wasn't meant for you. But if he does come back, if he steps up, if he proves his investment, that's when you know the connection is real. So if you've been giving too much, chasing too hard, feeling undervalued, step back, give it 30 days, let him experience your absence, and let yourself rediscover your own strength. Because the truth is, when you disappear, you don't just change him, you change yourself. And that, my friends, is where the real power lies. When something is always present, we stop noticing its value. It becomes background noise, something we assume will always be there. But the moment it disappears, everything shifts. Think about the last time you lost something important, your phone, your wallet, even a simple item like your keys. The second it was gone, your entire focus shifted to that one thing. You couldn't stop thinking about it, and you retraced your steps, trying to remember where you last had it. The value of that object skyrocketed in your mind, not because it changed, but because your perception of it changed. This is exactly what happens in relationships when you suddenly disappear. When you remove yourself from someone's life, especially when they've grown accustomed to your presence, it triggers a psychological reaction. It creates a sense of loss, and with loss comes realization. Suddenly, everything they took for granted becomes important. Every message you sent that they once ignored now feels like a missing piece of their day. Every call you made that they didn't appreciate now becomes something they wish would happen again. Psychologists have studied this effect in depth. The scarcity principle, a concept in behavioral psychology, states that people place a higher value on things that are rare or less available. This is why exclusive items, limited editions, and things that are difficult to obtain often feel more desirable. The same principle applies in relationships. when you're always available, always texting first, always making plans, always showing up, it creates an illusion of endless supply. He believes you will always be there, so he doesn't need to think about what life would be like without you. But the second you pull away, the illusion shatters. Your absence creates a void, and that void forces him to reflect on your presence in his life. He starts to question why he hasn't heard from you. He begins to wonder what you're doing, if you're thinking about him, if you've moved on. And in that moment of uncertainty, he starts to feel the value of what he had. He realizes that the attention, care, and energy you gave him were not just expected, they were privileges. Now, here's where the transformation truly happens. This shift in perception isn't just about making him miss you, it's about making him reevaluate his own behavior. When something is easily accessible, there's no motivation to change or put in effort. But when it becomes scarce, the mind goes into problem-solving mode. Why is she gone? Did I do something wrong? How can I get her attention back? He starts replaying past interactions, looking for clues, trying to understand what has changed. This self-reflection is powerful because it forces him to take responsibility for his actions or lack thereof. And here's another key truth. People don't appreciate things that are handed to them effortlessly. Think about a high-end luxury car versus an old, beat-up vehicle. The person who worked hard to afford that luxury car, who had to earn it, will take care of it meticulously. Meanwhile, the car that was given freely, without effort, is often neglected. The same applies in relationships. When you're always there, always giving without requiring any effort in return, it diminishes your perceived value. But when you pull back and make someone work to keep you in their life, they naturally place a higher value on you. This is why the people who treat us best are often the ones we had to win over. The boss who was hard to impress, the friend we had to put in effort to keep, the romantic partner who had high standards. These are the relationships we cherish the most because they required investment. Investment creates attachment. The more someone has to work to maintain a connection, the more they value it. This is not about playing games or manipulating emotions. It's about understanding human psychology and recognizing your own worth. If you are always giving without receiving, if you are always available without appreciation, you are setting yourself up to be taken for granted. By stepping back, you allow the other person to experience life without you. You give them the chance to recognize your impact, to feel your absence, to miss the energy and effort you brought into their world. And when that realization hits, it's powerful. It can completely shift the dynamic of a relationship. If he truly values you, if he genuinely cares, he will step up. He will put in effort because now he understands that you are not an unlimited resource. He will begin to prioritize you, to show appreciation, to make sure that he doesn't lose you again. But here's the most important part. This process isn't just about him, it's about you too. When you step back, when you create space, you get to see the truth of the relationship. You get to observe whether he actually values you or if he only reacts because he's uncomfortable with change. Because real connections are built on mutual appreciation, not just fear of loss. So if you've been feeling undervalued, if you've been giving endlessly without getting the same energy in return, the best thing you can do is step back, not as a trick, not as a punishment, but as a lesson for him and for yourself. Because when you disappear, you don't just change how he sees you, you change how you see yourself. And that, my friends, is where the real power lies. Most people go through relationships without ever stopping to reflect on how they truly feel. They are so caught up in the daily cycle of emotions, texting, calling, making plans, dealing with misunderstandings, that they never take a step back to see the bigger picture. This constant engagement creates an emotional fog. The highs feel amazing, the lows feel painful, but everything blends together, making it difficult to assess whether the relationship is truly fulfilling. When you remove yourself for 30 days, it's like pressing the reset button. It allows both you and him to detox from the emotional clutter and gain real clarity on where you stand. Distance is a powerful tool. It strips away the noise, the distractions, and the routine interactions that keep emotions tangled. When you step back, you give both of you a chance to let emotions settle and see what remains. Think of it like a glass of muddy water. If you keep stirring it, the dirt stays mixed in, clouding everything. But if you stop, if you allow the water to sit undisturbed, the dirt settles and clarity returns. That's what 30 Days of Space does. It lets the emotional turbulence calm down so that real understanding can emerge. For him, this means suddenly experiencing your absence in a way that forces reflection. He might not have realized how much he relied on your presence until it's gone. At first, he might feel relief, thinking he has more freedom or less pressure to communicate. But as the days pass, something shifts. He begins to notice the little things, the good morning texts that are no longer there, the laughter he used to share with you, the way you made him feel understood. These moments were once routine, but now that they are missing, their significance becomes undeniable. This process of emotional detox allows him to separate genuine feelings from habit. Many people stay in relationships simply because they are comfortable, not because they are truly connected. When you disappear for 30 days, it forces him to confront an important question. Does he miss you, or did he just like the convenience of having you around? This is where the truth starts to reveal itself. If his feelings were based on genuine appreciation, he will start to crave your presence, realizing that what you brought into his life was valuable. If, however, he only stayed out of routine or convenience, he may not feel a deep emotional pull, and that is something you deserve to know. But this period of space is not just for him. It's equally important for you. Too often, people pour their energy into someone else without ever questioning if they are truly happy. By stepping away, you give yourself the opportunity to detox from the emotional roller coaster and gain a fresh perspective. When you're constantly interacting with someone, your emotions are influenced by their reactions, their words, their moods. But when you remove that constant exchange, you get to feel your own emotions clearly, without interference. You may start to realize things you hadn't noticed before. Were you always the one making an effort? Did you feel truly valued, or were you just afraid of losing him? Did he bring happiness into your life, or were you holding on to a connection that was draining you? This period of absence allows you to reconnect with yourself, to step away from any emotional dependence and recognize your own worth outside of the relationship. It's during this time that your intuition becomes sharper. When you are constantly engaged with someone, your mind is clouded by emotions. But distance allows logic and intuition to rise to the surface. You start to see patterns in the relationship that you may have ignored before. You might notice that you feel more peaceful without the constant back and forth, or you might find that you genuinely miss the connection. Either way, you gain clarity on what you truly want rather than just reacting to emotions in the moment. Another crucial aspect of this emotional detox is that it breaks the cycle of attachment. Relationships can sometimes become addictive, not because they are fulfilling, but because they create emotional highs and lows. If you are constantly seeking validation from someone, waiting for their messages, feeling anxious when they pull away, then your emotions are being controlled by the relationship rather than by your own sense of self-worth. Taking 30 days away allows you to reset your emotional balance, to detach from unhealthy patterns, and to regain control over how you feel. And here's the most powerful part. When you return from this period of distance, you are no longer the same person you were before. You are clearer, stronger, and more self-aware. You are no longer acting out of desperation or fear of loss. Instead, you are making a choice, either to move forward in the relationship with a new understanding or to walk away with the confidence that you deserve something better. This is the ultimate benefit of emotional detox. It strips away the illusion of attachment and reveals what is real. If he truly values you, he will recognize your worth and make the effort to keep you in his life. If he doesn't, then the space has given you the clarity to move on, knowing that you are not losing something valuable, you are making room for something better. So by disappearing for 30 days, you are not just testing him, you are giving both of you the chance to reset, to detox from emotional confusion, and to see the relationship for what it truly is. And in that clarity, the right decision becomes unmistakably clear. Uncertainty is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. The moment we don't know what's happening, our brains begin working overtime to figure it out. It's why people become obsessed with unanswered questions, why cliffhangers in movies and TV shows keep us hooked, and why we can't stop thinking about things that feel unresolved. This is exactly what happens when you disappear for 30 days. Your absence creates uncertainty, and that uncertainty forces him to think about you in ways he never did before. When someone knows exactly where you stand, exactly how you feel, and exactly what to expect from you, there's no urgency to reflect on the relationship. There's no need for effort because everything feels predictable. If you always text first, always initiate conversations, always check in, then you become part of a routine. And routines, while comfortable, don't spark deep emotions. But the moment you break that routine, when the expected doesn't happen, that's when the mind starts paying attention. At first, he might not notice. Maybe he assumes you're just busy or that you'll reach out soon. But as time passes, something shifts. He checks his phone and realizes there's no message from you. He starts to wonder, why hasn't she texted me? Then another day goes by and still nothing. Now his mind begins searching for answers. Did something happen? Is she upset? Is she moving on? This is the power of uncertainty. It pulls focus. It forces someone to stop and question what they once took for granted. The brain craves resolution. When we don't have an answer, our minds automatically try to fill in the gaps. And here's the interesting part. When someone doesn't have direct information, their brain often assumes the worst. Maybe you're seeing someone else. Maybe you've realized you deserve better. Maybe you've outgrown him. These thoughts trigger a response, one that is emotional, not just logical. He starts to feel uncomfortable, and that discomfort makes him want to seek out certainty. He wants to know where he stands with you, but for the first time, he doesn't have control over that answer. This psychological shift is powerful because it moves him from a place of security to a place of questioning. When he was certain of you, he didn't need to think about you as much. But now that you're uncertain, now that he doesn't know, his mind keeps coming back to you. This is the same reason why people chase what they can't have, why we become obsessed with things that seem just out of reach. It's not about playing games, it's about understanding how attention and emotional investment work. Think about it this way. If someone hands you a book and tells you the entire plot in advance, will you be excited to read it? Probably not. But if they give you just enough information to spark curiosity, if they leave unanswered questions, suddenly you need to read it. But if you're dreamy, you suddenly have enough information to spark curiosity. If they leave unanswered questions, suddenly you need to read it. You need to know what happens. This is what uncertainty does. It keeps us engaged, makes us invested, and forces us to search for clarity. This is why disappearing for 30 days is so effective. It disrupts the pattern. It creates an information gap, and that gap demands attention. If he genuinely cares about you, this uncertainty won't just make him think, it will make him feel. He'll go through a mix of emotions: curiosity, frustration, longing, and even a little bit of fear. Fear that he may have lost something valuable. Fear that his position in your life isn't as secure as he once thought. And that fear, that's what pushes people to act. But here's the key. This only works if you truly disappear. If you check in, if you drop little hints, if you send a message here and there just to see how he's doing, you eliminate the uncertainty. You give him answers before his mind has had time to fully process your absence. The real impact happens when he has no idea what's going on with you, when he can't predict your next move, when he's left in a state of wondering. What's even more powerful is that this uncertainty is a test. It reveals how much he actually values you. If he doesn't care, he won't be affected. He won't put in the effort to find out where you stand. But if he does care, if you matter to him, then that uncertainty will push him toward action. He'll reach out, he'll try to reconnect, he'll do something to close that gap. And here's the most important part. You are no longer the one chasing clarity. You are no longer seeking validation. Instead, you are in a position of power. Because when he comes back, it's not out of obligation or routine. It's because he felt your absence and that feeling was strong enough to make him move. That's when you truly know where you stand. So when you disappear, you don't just create space, you create uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, he is forced to face what he truly feels. He is forced to see what life is like without you, and if he values you, that realization will change everything. Attraction isn't just about looks, chemistry, or compatibility. It's deeply tied to the way we perceive someone's value. When something is always available, it loses a sense of exclusivity. But when something becomes rare, harder to attain, or seemingly out of reach, it naturally increases in value. This is why people are drawn to things they feel they can't fully have. It's why luxury brands limit their supply, why people chase after what seems elusive, and why the moment you pull away, his attraction for you has the potential to grow stronger than ever before. When you're always present in someone's life, responding instantly, always initiating, always making time, they subconsciously categorize you as something safe and predictable. And while safety and reliability are essential for a healthy relationship, they don't create desire. Desire thrives in the space between certainty and mystery, in the tension between availability and distance. The second you remove yourself from the equation, something shifts. The certainty he once had about you disappears, and uncertainty breeds attraction. This is rooted in a well-known psychological phenomenon called the scarcity principle. People naturally place a higher value on things that seem limited or harder to obtain. If you've ever noticed how a product becomes more desirable when it's labeled as limited edition or only a few left in stock, you've seen this effect in action. The same rule applies to relationships. When you disappear for 30 days, you shift from being someone he assumed would always be there to someone who might not be available anymore. This shift alone triggers a change in how he sees you. At first, he might not notice. He may assume you're just busy or taking time for yourself. But as the days pass and you don't reach out, his mind starts to fill in the blanks. He starts wondering where you are, what you're doing, and most importantly, who you're doing it with. This curiosity is the first spark of renewed attraction. He suddenly realizes that he doesn't have full access to you anymore, and that thought alone makes you more desirable. Men, by nature, are wired to pursue. They thrive on the challenge, on the feeling that they are working towards something worth having. When a woman is overly available, when she constantly initiates, she removes that challenge. There's no uncertainty, no question about where she stands, and because of that, there's no chase. But the moment she pulls away, the moment she stops proving herself, the moment she allows herself to be the prize, something powerful happens. His attraction intensifies. There's a reason why the people we often desire the most are the ones who seem just out of reach. It's because the moment we feel like we have to earn someone's time, attention, and energy, we appreciate it more. When you disappear, you create a void, a sense of absence that forces him to notice what life is like without you. And in that space, his attraction isn't just based on physical or emotional connection anymore. It's fueled by a deep psychological shift that makes him crave what he no longer has easy access to. But here's where it becomes even more powerful. When you disappear, you also evolve. You aren't just sitting around waiting for him to notice your absence. You're growing, improving, focusing on yourself. And when he finally does reach out, when he realizes that he misses you, he's not coming back to the same version of you. He's coming back to a woman who has reclaimed her power, who has become even more confident, independent, and self-assured. And this, more than anything, is what skyrockets attraction. Men are drawn to women who value themselves, women who don't need to chase, who don't beg for attention, who don't depend on someone else for validation. When you show him through your actions that your life is full, exciting, and thriving without him, you become even more magnetic. He starts to see you in a new light, not just as someone he was once comfortable with, but as someone he now has to work for. This is the essence of attraction, creating space for desire to grow. Constant presence doesn't allow for longing. It doesn't allow for the imagination to take over. It doesn't allow someone to truly miss you. When you disappear, you give him the chance to rediscover what made him attracted to you in the first place. And in that rediscovery, the attraction isn't just rekindled, it becomes even stronger than before. So this isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate emotions. It's about understanding that true attraction isn't built on constant availability. It's built on value, scarcity, and the power of self-worth. When you step back, when you stop overgiving, when you let him come to you, That's when you create the kind of attraction that isn't just temporary, it's lasting, deep, and undeniable. The way someone treats you is a direct reflection of how they perceive your worth. If they believe you will always be there, always waiting, always giving without requiring much in return, they may start to take you for granted. Not necessarily out of malice, but because human nature tends to devalue what is easily available. When you remove yourself for 30 days, you disrupt this pattern, you create a void, and in that space, something profound happens. He is forced to reassess your value in his life. At first, the absence may feel like a simple change in routine. He might not immediately recognize its significance, assuming that things will go back to normal. But as time passes and you don't return, the reality of your absence starts to set in. The comfort of knowing you were always there, always available, always reachable is gone. This forces him to confront a question he may not have consciously considered before. What does life feel like without you in it? This is where a critical shift occurs. Without you constantly present, he no longer has access to the support, the affection, or the connection he once had. He starts to notice the small things, the way you made him laugh, the way you understood him, the way you brought a sense of warmth and stability into his life. These were things he may have overlooked or taken for granted before, but in your absence, their value becomes undeniable. Human nature dictates that we only truly appreciate something when we feel its absence. Think about anything in life that you've lost or stepped away from. A job, a friendship, a routine. In the moment, you might not have realized how much it meant to you, but once it was gone, the reality became clear. This is exactly what happens when you disappear for 30 days. He gets to see with absolute clarity what his life looks like without you. And in that realization, he is forced to evaluate what you truly mean to him. This period of reflection is incredibly revealing because it separates genuine appreciation from mere habit. Was he keeping you around simply because you were there? Or does he actually value you for who you are? Does he miss the real you or just the convenience of your presence? If he truly cares, this realization will hit him deeply. It will create a sense of urgency, a desire to reconnect, and a newfound appreciation for what you brought into his life. But here's the key. This transformation isn't just about him, it's just as much about you. Because during these 30 days, you're not just sitting around waiting for him to realize your worth. You're stepping into a space of self-reflection as well. You're asking yourself the same question, how do I feel without him? You're assessing whether the relationship truly added value to your life, or if you were holding on to it out of fear, comfort, or attachment. This is where the real power lies. When you remove yourself, you give yourself the chance to see whether you were being truly valued or simply tolerated. Were your needs being met? Were you receiving as much as you were giving? Was the relationship built on mutual appreciation, or were you the one carrying most of the emotional weight? This period of distance allows you to answer these questions with clarity, free from emotional noise and constant interaction. And here's the most empowering part. When you return after 30 days, you're no longer the same person you were before. You're not coming back seeking validation, waiting for him to finally appreciate you. You're coming back with a deeper understanding of your own worth. If he has realized your value and steps up to show genuine appreciation, then you get to decide if he is worthy of your time. If he hasn't, then you walk away knowing you deserve better, without regret, without hesitation, and without second-guessing your decision. The beauty of this process is that it shifts the dynamic entirely. No longer are you the one hoping to be noticed, waiting to be appreciated. Instead, you are the one in control. You have given him the space to recognize your value, but more importantly, you have given yourself the chance to see whether he deserves access to you. So when you disappear for 30 days, you're not just making him realize your worth, you're ensuring that you never again settle for someone who doesn't truly value you. And that, more than anything, is what transforms the way you approach relationships forever. When you disappear for 30 days, something profound happens, not just to him, but to you. This isn't just a strategy to make someone notice your absence. It's an opportunity to shift the power dynamic in your relationships and, more importantly, within yourself, because at the core of this entire process is a fundamental truth. Your ability to walk away is your greatest strength. Most people fear losing someone they care about. They fear that if they stop reaching out, if they stop being available, they will be forgotten. That fear keeps them trapped in cycles of overgiving, over-explaining, and over-proving their worth. But the moment you make peace with the idea that you don't have to chase love, everything changes. The moment you embrace the fact that someone either values you and acts accordingly, or they don't, and that either outcome is okay, you reclaim your personal power. This is what happens when you remove yourself from someone's life for 30 days. You are no longer in a position of seeking validation. You are no longer proving, convincing, or hoping to be chosen. Instead, you are stepping into a space of self-respect where you are choosing yourself first. And this shift is felt. People can sense when someone is no longer dependent on their approval. They can feel when someone is operating from a place of confidence rather than fear. When you step away, you are sending a clear message, not just to him, but to yourself. The message is, I am valuable, and I do not need to chase anyone to prove that. At first, he might not understand the change. He might assume you'll return, just like before. But as time passes and you remain firm in your silence, he starts to feel something unfamiliar, uncertainty. He realizes that the person who once gave him unwavering access is no longer making it easy for him. And this forces him to do something he may not have done before. Step up. People who genuinely care about you will not let you disappear without effort. If he truly values you, he will notice this shift and he will take action to reestablish the connection. Not out of obligation, not because you reminded him or pushed him to, but because he wants to. Because your absence made him realize what he stands to lose. But here's where the real transformation happens. You are no longer emotionally attached to his response. Whether he reaches out or not, whether he realizes your worth or remains indifferent, you have already won. Because you have proven to yourself that you are not dependent on anyone else's validation. You have broken free from the fear that kept you tied to situations where you weren't being fully valued. And this changes the way you navigate every relationship moving forward. You begin to operate from a position of power, not desperation. You no longer need to hold on to people who are unsure about you. You no longer feel anxious about someone pulling away because you have learned that you are capable of walking away first. This is the essence of self-respect. It's not about manipulating someone into chasing you. It's about knowing your worth so deeply that you never again settle for someone who doesn't see it. When you return after those 30 days, you are no longer the same person who left. You are stronger, more confident, and more self-assured. And that energy is magnetic. It draws people in, not because you played a game, but because you genuinely became someone who does not need to beg for love, attention, or appreciation. The real test isn't whether he comes back. It's whether you still want him once you've discovered how powerful you truly are on your own. The power of stepping away isn't about manipulation, it's about transformation. When you disappear for 30 days, you're not just making him realize what he lost, you're allowing space for reflection, for self-discovery, and for clarity on both sides. He is forced to confront the uncertainty, the absence, and the reality of what life feels like without you. And in that space, his feelings either deepen or the truth of the relationship becomes clear. But more importantly, you change. You shift from seeking validation to standing in your own worth. You no longer fear walking away because you have proven to yourself that you are whole, valuable, and powerful on your own. Whether he returns or not becomes secondary because the real win is knowing that you never again have to settle for someone who doesn't fully appreciate you. This isn't about playing games. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that commands respect, that knows when to give and when to pull back, that understands that true love and appreciation come freely, not from chasing, begging, or proving. When you embrace this mindset, your relationships shift forever. Because when you carry yourself like someone who knows their worth, the world has no choice but to respond accordingly.